So what is this positive psychology, the science of happiness, and why is it important for education? Marty Seligman, whom we'll meet shortly, considered the founder of the field, teaches at the University of Pennsylvania. When he speaks to teachers, parents, begins by asking the following questions. First of all, he asks them, what would you most like for your kids? And then they make a list, and the answers are, well, we want them to be happy, we want them to have healthy relationships, we want them to be good people, we want them to be resilient, to be strong, to be able to overcome difficulties. Overall, we want them to have a good life. And then he asks them a second question. The second question is, what do children mostly learn in school? And then they make a second list, and the list includes mathematics, language, geography, history, and there is very little overlap between the two lists. Now, it's not that geography and history and mathematics and language are not important, they're very important. We're all grateful for learning those things. At the same time, the first list is also important. And yes, students do get it from school. They get it from those exceptional teachers who are their role models. People who we remember and we're grateful for our entire lives. And at the same time, why not make this kind of education, the education of the first list, that teaches happiness, that teaches resilience, that teaches how to have healthy relationships, whether it's at work, whether it's with your romantic partner. Why not have that also an explicit part of the school curriculum? This is what positive psychology in education is all about. This is what the Métier program is all about. And I can't tell you how delighted I am that now Hebraic University is bringing it to Mexico. So let me tell you a little bit about this field in general, about what is positive psychology. So if I had to distill the essence of this field of positive psychology to one sentence, it would be this. Positive psychology focuses on what works. That's it. Now, what does this actually mean, though? So, if I go to a therapist, a conventional therapist today, what's the first question that she's likely to ask me? The first question is likely to be, Tal, what's wrong? What's not working in your life? Or if my wife and I go to a couples counselor, what's the first question that he's likely to ask us? The first question is likely to be, what's not working in your relationship? Why are you here? What's not going well? What do you need to fix? Or if a consultant comes into my company, the first question that she's likely to ask me is, what's not going well in your organization? What are your weaknesses as a manager, as a leader? What do you want to work on and fix? Now, these are good questions. These are very good questions to ask. However, they're not enough. More and more research is showing that if we want to fulfill the potential of the individual, of the relationship, of the organization, we need to begin with a different set of questions. So a therapist trained in positive psychology would begin by asking, Tal, what's working in your life? What's going well? Or a couples counselor would first ask my wife and me, what's going well in your relationship? You wouldn't be here if nothing was working. Or a consultant would begin by asking, what's going well in your department, in your company? What are your strengths as a leader, as a manager? Let's start with those, and that will help us better deal with the things that are not working, with the problems. In the words of Professor Martin Seligman, once again, the aim of positive psychology is to catalyze a change in psychology from a preoccupation only with repairing the worst things in life to also building the best qualities in life, with an emphasis on also. Positive psychology does not say, let's ignore the problems. Let's not look at the things that are not going well. Not at all. Positive psychology says, let's look at those things and let's also look at the things that are working, that are going well. The individual, relationship, and the organization. In other words, positive psychology says, let's look at the whole picture. What gives you strength? And then we ask, what are the overlap between these two lists? The what are your strengths and the what gives you strength. And when you find the overlap is your zone of peak potential. This is where you are at your best. You know, we did this study with students at IDC who came from overseas. Now, being away from home very often for the first time, you're 18, 19 years old, not easy. We had them at the beginning of the semester answer these questions. What are your strengths and what gives you strength? This question, they spent 20 minutes on each, increased their overall well-being for the year because they started to think about things that they could implement, use in order to deal with the difficulties that they would be facing. And finally, physical exercise. And I want to say a few more words here because I'm not exaggerating now when I say that every day something comes to my mailbox, either from a newspaper or from an academic journal or from one of my students, something about physical exercise and mental health. The research on it is mind-boggling. Regular physical exercise has the same effect on our psychological well-being as our most powerful psychiatric medication. 3 times a week, 30 minutes each time of exercising. It could be jogging, it could be walking, it could be swimming, it could be playing soccer, whatever it is. You know what the best form of exercise is in terms of the most impact on psychological well-being? Dancing. Dancing. Why? Because dancing also has the social element. We're also smiling when we dance. Our body's in a healthy posture. But any form of exercise has the same effect as our most powerful psychiatric medication. 3 times a week, 30 minutes each time. That's not a lot. That's not a lot. Even just walking while talking to your partner or friend or having a meeting while walking can make all the difference. This doesn't mean that we can throw away our psychiatric medication. It doesn't, because there are many people, you know, who are feeling depressed or anxious, and just to get out of the house, they need the medication. However, we need to start treating physical exercise as a serious psychological and psychiatric intervention. In fact, more and more psychologists are calling physical exercise the wonder drug of interventions. It's also good for kids. When we implement more physical exercise in schools, school violence goes down. The kids actually become smarter, their grades improve. Why? Because creativity is higher, concentration is better, relationships improve. At any age, organizations that introduce regular physical exercise see an increase in productivity, creativity, and job satisfaction. At any age. So this is research done by John Ratey, who's a psychiatrist at Harvard Medical School. And what he showed, that regular physical exercise, even if we started later on in life, reduces the likelihood of dementia and Alzheimer by 52%. They asked people around the world, 63 countries, including Mexico, US, Egypt, Israel, you name it, around the world, 63 countries. What's more important for you, to focus on your weaknesses or focus on your strength? The overwhelming majority of people in every country, no exception, whether it was China or US or Mexico, said it's more important to focus on weaknesses. Well, it turns out that most people are wrong. The minority that said strength were disproportionately more successful and happier. But you know, this is just a correlation, so they took it a step further and they taught people how to focus on their strength. By asking them the 2 questions that I asked you earlier. What are your strengths? What are you good at? And what gives you strength? What energizes you? And these people became happier and more successful. They asked people another question. At work, do you get to do what you do best every day? In other words, do you get to exercise your strength? Same 63 countries, overwhelming majority of people said no. The minority that said yes were part of business units, organizations that were a lot more successful. But you know, this is just a correlation. So they took it a step further and they taught people, whether it was teachers or whether it was managers in organizations, to look for strength in their employees, to help their employees or students identify their strength. And these schools, these organizations, these business units became more successful and happier. Another study, this is arguably the best known study in the field of positive psychology, on gratitude. Robert Emmons and Mike McCullough asked people every day to write down at least 5 things for which they're grateful. Big things or little things. It could be God or family, or it could be a nice meal that I had, or a sentence that I heard. People who wrote it on a regular basis and meant what they wrote were happier, more optimistic, more likely to achieve their goals, more successful, more generous, kinder toward other people, and physically healthier. It actually strengthened their immune system. How long does it take? 2 minutes? 3 minutes? Sonia Lubimirsky from UC Riverside has shown that even doing it once a week has impact. You know, I do it every night before I go to bed. The people who did it on a regular basis, whether it was I'm looking forward to a meal with a friend, or to doing something at work, or I'm looking forward to the end of the day. But 3 things at least. These people were not happier, but they were less pessimistic and they experienced less anxiety during the day. These practices take 1 or 2 minutes. We're introducing them in schools now with the kids on a regular basis as a ritual. And it's making a significant difference in the way students perceive school and experience their life as a whole, when they appreciate what they have. But here lies the problem. When do we usually begin to appreciate what we have? When do we stop taking for granted what we have? When we lose it. When things go wrong. There was research done by Irvin Yalom from Stanford University on terminally ill patients. These are people who have 3 to 6 months to live. And one thing which he found in those people, time and again, is that they would say something to the effect of, and these are people who are about to die. They would say something to the effect of, for the first time in my life, I feel that I'm alive. Why? Because for the first time in my life, I truly appreciate my wonderful, amazing family. Or I truly appreciate my inner strength that I didn't know I had. Or I truly appreciate a good meal or the miraculous world around us. Now, it's not that these things did not exist before. The family, the meals themselves, their inner strength, they were all there before they were told that they were about to die. But as far as they were concerned, many of these things that make life worth living did not exist because they took it for granted. Just as for many of us, the children on the bus did not exist, even though they were right there. And the question is, do we need to wait? Do we need to wait for something extraordinary, very often tragic, to happen for us to appreciate what's inside us and all around us? You know, my favorite word in Hebrew is to give, natan. My favorite word in English is to appreciate. It has 2 meanings. The first meaning is to say thank you for something, and that's a nice thing to do. Religion certainly advocates it. In Judaism, the first word we say in the morning is modeh, which is expressing gratitude. I'm grateful. But there's another meaning to the word appreciate, and that meaning is to grow in value. The economy appreciates, or money in the bank appreciates. And the 2 meanings are connected of the word appreciate. Because when you appreciate the good in your life, when you're grateful for it, the good appreciates. You have more of it. Whether it's the good in your relationship, whether it's the good with your children, whether it's the good at work. Unfortunately, the opposite is also the case. When you do not appreciate the good, when you take it for granted, the good depreciates and we have less of it. And unfortunately, this is the fate of most human potential.